Greetings, YPA families. This is Rebecca Kick, your middle school principal, and I wanted to share a quick video on mastery-based grading, the system that we use here in the middle school. With mastery-based grading, your student is learning and focused on specific grade level content standards. We level the curriculum based on your student's ability, but our goal is to really work towards mastery of those individual standards. In the mastery-based learning, you typically have units. A minor unit typically runs 1 to 2 weeks and focuses on a very specific standard, skill, or objective. That minor unit will include instruction, practice, and a mastery check. After several minor units are taught, they typically combine into a major unit, which concludes in an assessment that ties several standards together. In mastery levels, when you're looking at your students' grades in the grade book, an 80 to 100 is considered a proficient score, which means your student has mastered those standards. A 60 to 79 means your student is progressing and your student is working towards mastery and should continue to practice. Below a 60 means your student is not proficient in that standard. So your student is struggling with those standards and should really ask the teacher for support. We have different grading categories that you will see in your student's grade book in Schoology. The practice assignments are the activities and assignments that students are using to actually practice the skills and content. The grade may actually be in the grade book, or it may be in the program such as Excel that your student is using. Because we want students to be able to practice as much as possible and be willing to make mistakes in order to learn from those mistakes, the practice grades only contribute 0 to 10% of the final grade. The goal of the practice is really to serve as feedback for the students and the teacher so that we can understand how well your student is progressing towards mastery of that skill. Then at the end of that minor unit, your student will take a mastery check, which may take the form of a quiz, assignment, or small project. It will focus on assessing your student's understanding of that minor unit's standard. If your student does not score mastery, so 80 or above in the first mastery check, they will have one additional chance to demonstrate mastery of that skill. However, in most instances, they will have to show the teacher that they've done some work in between the first mastery check and the retake. That may be coming in for more instruction or tutoring, or it may be completing additional practice. Since mastery checks are our true measure of where your student is their level in mastering that grade level standard, the mastery checks account for 60% of your student's final grade. Lastly, we have tests and projects that come at the end of a major unit that combines multiple standards together. This assessment will serve as a summative, cumulative assessment of your students' learning and provides an opportunity for students to transfer knowledge and skills to new contexts. The test and project grade account for 30 to 40% of your student's final grade. So when you look at your final grades, your students' final grades in Schoology, you have the quarter grade, which consists of 60% is from mastery check grades, 30 to 40% from test project grades, and 0 to 10% from practice. At the end of each semester, the 2 quarters are averaged for the semester grade, and at the end of the year, the 2 semesters are averaged for your final grade. There are a few important notes to consider when looking at mastery-based grading. One, grades are informative, not evaluative. A lot of times we hear people talk about being an A or B student, or my student has always gotten A's or B's, but that's not really the point of mastery-based grading. The grades are really information to show you and your student, as well as the teachers, how your student is doing on mastering that particular standard. Grades also promote self-reflection. So if your student is scoring below mastery, one thing to consider is this grade representative of my student's level of mastery, or is something else going on? So if you look at the grades and you're seeing constant grades that are about the same level, then that means that your student is really, that's the level of mastery that they're at. In those cases, it's important to talk to the teacher and see if there's additional support that they can offer, or if they can work with one of our interventionists to help improve their level of mastery. However, if you see a lot of zeros in the grade book, then that may mean that the mastery level is not a true reflection of your students' mastery and understanding, but that your student is not completing all of their work. Because if they're not taking the time to do the practice, then they're not going to do well on the mastery check. Speaking of that, practice is exceedingly valuable. That is the opportunity for students to try out the content and the concepts in different areas and get a sense of, I really understand it or I don't get it yet. If they're skipping over the practice, then they're really missing out on that valuable information. Next is it is a focus on mastery. We do, like I said, offer opportunities for additional instruction and practice, and every mastery check does have an opportunity for a student to retake or do corrections if they don't demonstrate mastery the first time around. It's also important for our IEP students, if you have a student with an IEP, to think about when you're looking at the grades, is it an accurate measure, again, of your student's mastery? If your student really struggles in math, for example, and that is why they have an IEP, then you can expect that their mastery grades in math will be lower. That's because it is an accurate measure of where your student is. It's also important to remember that if your student has an IEP, while we are working towards mastery or grade level standards, our main focus is on their IEP goals. Again, mastery-based grading is an opportunity for your student to really focus on individual standards in each class and be able to identify if they are mastering that standard. If you have questions, please feel free to reach out to your teachers, but we also encourage you to work with your students as well. They can take you into Schoology, show you what they're learning, show you their grades, and tell you all about what they're doing in their classes. It's a great day to be a patriot.